Hello, and welcome to Breezin with Bierman. I am the guest host for this program, Kurt Tazelaar. Our first guest is Gail Siggelakis. She is the author of The Affirming Way of Life. Gail, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Tell me about yourself.
Well, I was a teacher for 38 years, and my focus as a teacher, I think my greatest subject was the children. I loved helping them to discover their talents. The subjects were a vehicle for me. I wasn't interested in the subjects per se, I was interested in the children. And the subjects were a vehicle for me to help children discover their talents. When I turned 50, I had this epiphany. I said, first of all, I was thinking, aside from teaching, I always wanted to be a writer. I'm a passionate reader, and books have helped me tremendously in my life. And I wanted to be among those people that could also help people with my life. So I had this epiphany. I was 50 and I said, what have I really accomplished in my life? And I thought, I was quite disappointed. I thought, I don't have any special talents. I'm not necessarily an artist. I'm not a quilt maker. I'm not a gardener. But all of a sudden, a light bulb went off. And I realized that my greatest talent was that I am an outstanding affirmer. I always notice good things in other people and I tell them. And the best part of my epiphany was that I learned that quality from my bipolar mother, who until that point I felt all she had done was given me challenges in my life. And actually, I learned my best quality from her.
How do you be an affirming person with a bipolar person?
Well, you know, my mother, she always had positive words for my sister and I, and she also had positive words for everyone. She noticed the good in people, and she took the time to tell them. So she was an affirming person, and she affirmed me, and it became a life habit because I was used to hearing good things.
So this theme of affirming became the substance, the content of your book.
Correct.
Which we have here.
The Affirming Way of Life.
Yes. Available where?
Amazon.
Amazon.
Yes.
Everything's on Amazon these days.
Yes, and I'm happy to say my book is on Amazon.
So what is the central theme of your book? What is the message?
The message is that the words we speak to the people in our life make a tremendous impact, and we don't realize it. I feel like people spill their words without thinking of the impact, and the words we speak not only build other people up, but they also make our relationships closer.
Let's deal with specifics here, dealing with a person. How does one incorporate your philosophy into their daily interactions?
Okay. Well, it starts with recognizing that your words impact people. And then it involves looking. It's like looking with eyes for what's good in a person rather than what's bad. So for example, I'll give you a little story about how the affirming way transformed my relationship with my husband. When we are in a relationship for a long time, grievances build up, and we start to not notice, the good stuff in the person that we were all gaga over when we first came together. So one day, my husband had done the dishes, and he said, I did the dishes. I said, oh, that's good. And he said, well, you didn't say it. Didn't you appreciate it? And I said, well, Gus, I do lots of things too. I go grocery shopping. I don't expect you to say thank you. So I thought about it, and I realized that my husband really, he gave from the fullness of his heart. He was doing the dishes to make me happy. And so I had this shift, and I said, let me be sure to tell him when I appreciate what he does. So the next time he did the dishes, for example, I said, honey, that was really I so appreciate that you did the dishes. I hate to see a dirty, messy sink. And the interesting thing that happened was that as I made that shift, he started then telling me, he would notice things I did that he appreciated. And we started having just this greater give and take flow of this good energy. It became a habit for us that I will tell you has persisted over, at least the last 5 years. And it makes our relationship so much more precious because we tell each other how much we love and appreciate each other.
Were you able, in your career as a school teacher, to use this philosophy?
Very much so. For example, when I saw a student that might be, say, struggling with writing, and I saw them make an effort, like take some feedback that I gave them, and I saw them, say, make an effort to put more, say, adjectives in their writing, I would comment. I would say, boy, Stephen, I really like the way you use those adjectives. It's wonderful how you take feedback. So I would, with the students, whenever I saw them doing something that I thought was, on track, that was helping them to do their best, whether it was being kind. If someone was kind to another student, I might say, that was so kind of you to give your pencils to your table mate. You're a very thoughtful person. So I would bring to children's attention what they were doing right. And I would get lots of feedback from their parents letting me know that it really made a difference in the way their children felt about themselves.
Were there differences in the way the children would respond according to their ages? Because like a kindergartner or a first grader might be easier to deal with than, say, fifth grader when they start becoming teenagers and, those problem years.
That's very interesting. It's a good point. I taught every grade from kindergarten through fifth, but really when I began working on this awareness I had of this affirming way of life approach, they were fifth graders that I taught. And you know what? I find, believe it or not, I find everybody, no matter what age they are, appreciates being affirmed. I mean, sometimes people may just blush and say thank you, or they may reject the compliment, but because it's hard to take in. But nonetheless, you can see on a person's face how it makes them feel valued, and it can make them recognize their value in ways that they didn't before.
Sometimes when we write about a subject, it forces us to examine our own beliefs and our own thoughts. Did you have an introspective experience with yourself in the writing of this book? Did you change it all?
That's a great question. I changed tremendously writing this book. But let me start by saying, in terms of the introspective, the amazing part for me of doing this book was I examined my relationships. I examined the impact, particularly I started with all the adults, my parents. I had an aunt that was very influential in my life. I had a stepmother. And I examined the impact that their words had on me. Some of the words, I grew up in a home where I had my mother's very positive words, but because of my mother's illness, my mother got a lot of negative. There were a lot of negative words that just flew freely. And it helped me to realize how important it is to censor ourselves, to catch ourselves before we say negative things. So one part was recognizing, really examining the impact and realizing, helping me to heal those relationships in writing this book. But the other big way that the book impacted me was that I had a dream. And when I started, I had no idea how to be a writer. And I found a writing coach. I joined a writers group, and the way I developed my faith in my ability to do this, to accomplish such a big goal, that was life transforming for me.
Some of this stuff is just a learning curve where it takes time. You'll write something, and then it'll take you 6 months to realize that what you wrote could be written much better. And then you'll understand how to do it.
100%. Oh my God. You know what's funny? Well, first I want to just add this. Yesterday I was talking to a friend who read my book, and she said to me, Gail, I am so fussy about editing. About when I read books, I always find errors from big publishing houses. She said, I didn't see one error because I revised and edited that book, I would say, over 100 times. I mean, revisions, edited. And yes, I mean, after I had written the whole book, I had to go back and revise everything because I was a much better writer by then.
And then you also have to give it a rest, because when you're that intense on it, it can cloud your mind also. Either it'll all seem horrible to you, or it'll all seem great and you lose your capacity to have critical judgments.
Yes, you're very right. Just the whole process to write a book, it was a fascinating process to me. You know, how, I would read other writers and I would study what I liked about their writing, and really one of the main ways that I develop the ideas in my book is through stories, because I discovered how I read a book about the process of writing, and the author, Dani Shapiro, she showed us about the process of writing all through her stories from her personal life. And I think that's one of the things that I keep getting feedback from people, that they love how I tell so many stories from my life. But yet, another piece of it was, because this was my first book, I wasn't sure that my ideas were strong just on their own. So I did a lot of research, and I found such interesting research that validated my life experience and my stories. And people tell me, the readers tell me, that they love that it's a balance of both personal stories and research and other people's experiences as well.
What's been some of the response to the book?
Okay. One person just the other day said to me that this story I told, it was in my town that I live in, Robbinsville. Our superintendent, about a year ago, I think it might have been 2 years ago, he was accidentally run over by a student on her way to school. He was out jogging, walking his dog. He was run over. And it was the biggest tragedy in our town. He was an amazing, positively spirited person with a great impact. At his funeral.
And he died. He died. Wow.
He did die.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, he did die. And at his funeral, he had three sons and his wife. And their eulogy impacted me so much that I included stories from it in my first chapter. And one of his sons got up and said, my dad, every day, as I was leaving for school, my dad would say, make someone's day. So a reader who contacted me the other day said she read that story about make someone's day, and it was like a light bulb went off in her head. And she said, I want to make people's day every day. And she was a teacher, and she told me how she started a thing with her class where she wrapped a box with wrapping paper and brainstormed with the kids, how can we make someone's day? And one of the ways the kids came up with was to affirm their bus drivers. So the first week of this program, she had helped the kids generate a list. How can you specifically affirm your bus driver so it'll really make a difference to him? And she said it was amazing. The stories she heard from the kids, how good they felt about it. And she even heard some stories from the bus drivers. So, I just felt her excitement about she said to me, it's such a small thing to affirm someone, but it can be such a big thing to them and your relationship.
Your book is available on Amazon.
Correct.
So anybody wants to
Get, yes?
The Affirming Way of Life, Gail Siggelakis.
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 Very nice. Thank you. Thank you for having me on your show.
You're welcome.
And I also have a website, theaffirmingway.com.
Thank you. We welcome to the show Dr. Frederick Lepore. He is a professor of neurology and ophthalmology at Rutgers Robert Wood Johnson Medical School here in New Jersey. He is a clinical neuro-ophthalmologist, designer of the optic nerve test card, and has written over 125 scientific publications, including Dissecting Genius, Einstein's Brain and the Search for the Neural Basis of Intellect. And he is now the author of Finding Einstein's Brain, this book here, published by the Rutgers University Press. Welcome to the show, Fred.
Thank you, Kurt.
And we are joined for this interview by the journalist Melissa Drift, who wrote an excellent article about this book in the March issue of the Princeton Echo. About 100 yards from here, right that way, there's a statue of Albert Einstein.
Yeah.
Albert Einstein, in his life, made it very clear he did not want any statues of him made. So he made the mistake of dying.
Yeah.
And after you die, things happen. Which, your book starts in 1955.
Yes. Well, he died on probably another couple hundred yards from here at Princeton Medical Center, the old one on Witherspoon Street. And he was living on borrowed time. He had an abdominal aortic aneurysm. He'd had it for a number of years, and he'd actually had surgery in the 40s to try to fix it. But they really couldn't do vascular surgery. So the way we can do it now. So it was just a matter of time before the thing ruptured. And he actually had surgical consultations from Cornell professors came down here, and he said, look, I'm going to, it's my time. I'm going to die elegantly. And he died in the morning of April 18th, 1955.
And
from a ruptured aortic aneurysm.
Him being this great genius scientist, provisions were made for what would become of his brain.
Well, that was being improvised. He really never spelled out what he wanted done. In his will, it doesn't mention how he wanted his mortal remains disposed of. As it turned out, probably by word of mouth, he expected to be cremated. But dying in the hospital, it was routine to do an autopsy to establish the cause of death, which was very easy. When you look at the abdomen, you could see that he had lost a lot of blood. And Thomas Harvey, the pathologist at Princeton Medical Center, for whatever reason, decided to go off script, and he removed the brain of Einstein, thinking that this is an unparalleled opportunity.
So it hadn't been a plan. Mm-hmm. It was improvised.
Exactly.
Wow.
Yeah, and that's what Einstein's eldest son and his executor, Otto Nathan, said when they read in the New York Times the next morning that the brain had been preserved for science. They had not a clue from either Einstein, or there was nothing in the will. They come down to Princeton, or they probably were in Princeton in the sense that there was a death vigil because Einstein was so ill. And Harvey made the pitch of his life. He basically said, you're never going to get an opportunity like this to study a genius of this magnitude. He was a man of science. I'm going to do a scholarly pursuit of this. And the son went for it. The son, who I think was a professor in California.
Hans Albert.
Hans Albert, Hans Albert. There's one other son who was schizophrenic, so Hans was really the go-to guy.
Eduard.
Yep, absolutely. Eduard was one of Jung's patients in a asylum in Switzerland. But Hans Albert endorsed the idea, and then presumably Otto Nathan, the executor, and Einstein's good friend, had to go along with it.
Now, for the standards of the time, Harvey did a reasonable job. And we have these photos taken here of Einstein's brain.
Yeah.
If this autopsy had been done today, things would have been done a bit differently.
Yes. It varies. I mean, most neuropathologists do what they call a brain cutting, where they wouldn't, this brain was dissected into 240 cubes. And that was Harvey's own system. There were other books, The Isocortex of Man, that there were other schemes as how to study a brain and to dissect it into sections. Don't ask me how Harvey came up with 240, but he did. He was not, what you can see, he was a pathologist, very well trained, but he was not a, quote, neuropathologist. Probably in the 50s, there probably were only a handful in this country of people who did nothing but neuropathology. But he had been exposed at the University of Pennsylvania during his residency to a very good neuropathologist. So he knew his way around the brain enough, but he was not an academic. He was the chief of pathology at a small country hospital. I mean, Princeton, you can imagine what Princeton was like in the 50s. It was not a big town. But like any good doc, you know, he read up on a number of books. Isocortex of Man is the one that he used to kind of guide him. And after he took these photographs, you know, he gets out his Exacta 35 millimeter black and white camera, and he basically took lots and lots of pictures, most of which we've seen, and these are some of them. But what you're seeing there, those photographs of the whole brain, this is actually half the brain, but the photographs of the whole brain, within a matter of weeks to months, it ceased to exist because it was dissected into 240 cubes. It was embedded in a kind of a nitrocellulose called celluloidin. That was a preservative in those days. And he took it to the University of Pennsylvania, where he'd done his training, and there was a wonderful technologist, Marta Keller, who could take those blocks and slice them very finely and make microscope slides without using much brain. And so we're told that there were at least 12 sets of 200 slides that she created of Einstein's brain. Harvey the whole way was betting that if you were going to find out something significant about the brain of a genius or Albert Einstein, it would be microscopic, that you would be under the microscope. It's very interesting. I'm showing you these photographs, and we made a discovery in terms of the external architecture, the cortex of the brain, that had not been suspected. But Harvey thought it was, and I spoke to him in 2000. He died in 2007, but he felt that the secret to Einstein's intellect would be under the microscope.
So the thought then, it was about the molecules and not the connections.
Well, it was about the neurons. I mean, basically in those days, you were doing cell counts. You were looking at the neurons and the support cells, what we call the glia cells. Nowadays, we're probably looking at the connections. You know, again, you go, you know, a mile from here to the Princeton Neuroscience Institute, where Sebastian Sung does what's called connectome work, where he's just looking at the axons and the dendrites that connect up those neurons. That's probably where the answers are going to be found, if the answers are to be found. But although Harvey did some myelin staining to look at some of the connections a little bit, he never really brought those things to fruition.
Now, at some point, what happened to Einstein's brain falls into a bit of legend.
Yeah.
It becomes dormant.
Yeah.
And then an article in a New Jersey magazine is published, and it rekindles some interest. And then in the 80s and early 90s, a couple of experiments were done with the slides.
30 years. It was a 30-year drought. The brain is sectioned into slides into 55, and Marion Diamond writes the first article in 1985. And it wasn't like Harvey was sitting on his hands. He was trying to get help without losing control of the brain. And that almost happened. When Einstein died, Harvey was asked to go to Washington for sort of the forerunner of the NIH. I think it was called the NINCDS, but at any rate, kind of the gray eminence of neuropathologists was a guy named Webb Haymaker in Washington. And Haymaker wrote lots of books, but he's probably the most notorious. He was the guy who did the neuropathology on Benito Mussolini.
They did?
Yeah,
wow.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't have the results on that one, but he was the guy who did it.
He was hanging upside down for a while.
There must have been enough on the neck that he got a piece. I don't know. But Haymaker puts the full court press on Harvey, saying, it's wonderful that you came down, now give us the brain. And he's got a bunch of other neuropathologists at this meeting, and Harvey's going, well, I don't think so. And Haymaker was vexed, but Harvey kept the brain. At that point, he was probably marginalized from the neuropathology establishment, such as it was in the mid-century. But Harvey kept trying to take pieces of brain. He would find a neuropathologist.
He was trying to market them out.
Yeah, he was really trying to get it, and he got mixed results. I mean, mostly mixed results, and he actually had pieces given back to him. They say, well, what am I supposed to do with this? You know, the study of a genius brain, it's a one, you got an N of one. Most guys who make their living doing academic neuropathology, trying to do grants, they're not going to look at a single specimen. And so he got rebuffed in a very polite way. Now, he probably gave some of those slide sets that no one knows where those slide sets are. Right now, we can probably account for, assuming there might be, 2,400 slides out there. And again, the numbers are not, but I'm talking about 12 sets of 200. If you want to see the slides of Einstein's brain, you can go on iTunes and buy the app for 99 cents because they digitize the slides. This little museum called the National Museum of Health and Medicine, in order to underwrite the cost of digitizing microscope slides of Einstein's brain, of which they only had about 500 to 600. So where the other bunch, we don't know. We don't know. And that's a recurring motif in this. We don't know where all those 240 sections are. We don't know where all the slides are. We don't know who has them. There's a lot of mystery to this.
Yeah, they could potentially turn up somewhere, and even if they did, they can't test the DNA because the DNA got ruined, right?
It got DNA.
All the DNA is gone.
Yeah.
Well, it's snippets. It's you know, you got 3 billion base pairs of, base pairs in your DNA, and you're an average in a human chromosome. Well, imagine that they're being fragmented into, pieces that are 1,000 segments long or 100 segments. You can't reassemble them because it's the sequence that sort of tells you a lot about, the genome. So in 55, I mean, they knew about DNA. Watson and Crick had figured that out in 53, but they weren't really, they couldn't do sequence of DNA. They didn't have the technology, so they just basically kept the stuff at room temperature before they plunged it into formalin, and it denatures into fragments.
Part of your role in this is not just as a writer of the whole story, but you became part of the story at one point. You started making your own scientific studies of these slides and specimens. Well,
Slides, no. Saw the stuff. Basically, where I became involved was with Dean Falk. Really consider me a Boswell to Dean Fawkes Johnson. She was the scientist who, the skill set of looking at the cortex of the brain. I mean, I have to know about it. I mean, I can tell you that's the frontal lobe, that's the central sulcus, but to basically say this particular central sulcus is a variant compared to the human norm, there's only not very many people who are an expert in that. And Dean Falk, who is a paleoanthropologist, was in touch with me, and she, around 2007, she was saying, well, I read your article in 2000 called Dissecting Genius, and she says, do you have more photographs? And I said, no, I don't. And the world took a couple of turns, and in 2009, Harvey had died in 2007, and I called up his good friend, Cleora Wheatley, who's, I don't believe she's alive, I could be wrong, but in Titusville, and I said, did Dr. Harvey have any of the specimens of his stuff on Albert Einstein? And she says, yeah, we got several cartons in the basement. So you figure, so you go over to Titusville and you look at the stuff, and the rest is history. But it took us another 2 years to actually see these photographs and to see the slides.
And you were able to make determinations.
The determinations we made is once we got access, we went to the Harvey's archives went to this museum that you've never heard of, the National Museum of Health and Medicine, Silver Spring, Maryland. It's government run. It's actually on Fort Detrick. But suffice it to say that we after much inveighing with the curator, who eventually became our co-author, Adrienne Noe, and for the Big Brain article in 2012, 2013, she said, okay, come down, 2012. We had 8 hours to photograph the photographs. We couldn't do the slides. I don't think anyone can do the slides without months and months at a time, but we took a lot of photographs, dozens of photographs. We had no idea that these views of the brain existed. Up at that point, there were 5 pictures of the brain that had been published in 1999. And you couldn't make the kind of determinations we did with those little 5 postage stamp sized photographs that had been part of an article written in The Lancet in 99. So we find these photographs, take a lot of shots. Dean Falk, the anatomist, basically spends 2 or 3 months looking at every one of those labels, relabeling it, and comparing it to the standard atlases of human neuroanatomy, which are Connolly's Atlas and Ono's Atlas. And she's saying, Fred, every lobe of his brain is anatomically different from the human norm. And there's certain standout things, if people want, I can certainly show you the ones that jump off the page.
Yeah, like you found evidence that he played the violin, physical evidence of that.
That is her discovery. Now, she'd found that the cortical knob had been known about, but she was the first person who noticed that little U-turn there, and that's on the motor cortex of his right hemisphere, and that is seen in musicians. You can't tell what instrument they play, but the string players, you're correct. So the idea that your right hand, you do your fret work with your left hand, and the right side of your brain controls it, and she figured that out in, I think, 2009.
The right hand is the reason why if you're a right-handed person, that motor skill there has to be much more precise than the left.
Okay, but no, in violin guy, I'm not a violinist, but violin guys, they bow with, let's say, with the right, and Einstein was right-handed, and they do the fretwork with the left. So the right hemisphere is, for better or worse, would be thought that would be more involved.
And then they said in that Nova documentary that you're in that they also found that keyboard players get them on the other side.
Yeah. Because you figure those guys are going to be, unless they're stride players, I don't know. It depends on it. But the string players, there's an association. It's not invariable. And of course, the $64,000 question is, are you born with that, and that's what makes you a great string player, or do you kind of develop that as the neuroplasticity evolves as you? No one knows the answer to that.
Well, haven't they done studies where they've shown that people do develop it?
I would love to see serial. But how would you do it? You need serial MRIs from beginning at age 1 and then working your way up to the 20s. I mean, I don't know. It could be. I make no claim.
Well, also, when we want to compare Einstein's genius brain with the standard brain, we also need samplings of other, quote, genius brains, and that research really hasn't been done.
Correct. We got an N of 1. I mean, if you're saying you really want to science this up, you would need to pick out a cohort of geniuses and have them donate their brains and study them, or you could get around the donate your brain part with MRI technologies. There are certain imaging technologies where you can take a diagnostic MRI. If you're having bad headaches and they do an MRI, that MRI, you can't tell about your surface anatomy in this kind of detail, but there are programs that can give you a 3D appearance replica of the brain.
Before your book, we had a couple of prior attempts to deal with the topic. Einstein's Brain, a 1994 documentary by Kevin Hull, which followed the Japanese professor.
Oh, that's a great one.
So you're familiar with these?
Oh, yeah.
And then there's Michael Paterniti's Driving Mr. Albert, a trip across America with Einstein's Brain.
That created a lot of problems for me.
Yeah. What kinds of problems?
Well, because at a certain point, you remember I said we're in Titusville, we got those boxes, and I'm trying to, and I'm saying to Cleora Wheatley, I'm saying, well, can we get access to those? And she says, no. Harvey's son, eldest son, Thomas Harvey Jr., is trying to be the executor, and he was trying to pick out an institution to curate it. It ended up being the NMH, the National Museum of Health and Medicine. But I called him up. He wouldn't even talk with me, not because the family was very upset with the Paterniti book. And Paterniti book is kind of an on-the-road book that...
it's not a serious book.
No. Even though I'm told Harvey liked Paterniti, but Paterniti...
He wasn't qualified.
No.
He wasn't the guy. You're the guy.
Yeah, and he orchestrated a thing where he got him down into Wichita, and he had him meet William S. Burroughs, and Burroughs meets Harvey and goes, tell me about your addictions, doctor. Yeah. That's in the book, and that's a great read, but the family was upset.
It's for other purposes than science.
Correct.
Your book is available on Amazon?
Absolutely. They sell everything.
And in bookstores?
Yep, you can get it here in town or Barnes & Nobles. I don't know whoever stocks them. I mean, it's a university press. It's not like it's crowding the aisles, but yeah, you can get it at most bookstores.
And having the subject of Einstein, it's a headline grabber for Melissa's article.
Well, she wrote a wonderful article, very informative. But you can, if you read that, you got a lot of my book, but read the book. But start with Melissa.
Yeah, if you want to, we'll have the link for it put up on the screen. Thank you. And it's been great seeing you, and Melissa too.
Thank you.
This is wonderful. Thank you.
Our next guests are members of Next Gen, a group headquartered in the Princeton YWCA, right around the corner. Introduce yourselves, please.
My name is Sam Bobila. I'm the Director of Fund Development at the YWCA Princeton.
I'm Samatha McGraw, and I am co-president of the YWCA Princeton Next Gen board.
And I'm Raya Arbiol. I'm the co-president with Sam at the Next Gen board. What is
the good work that you do?
So the YWCA Princeton is one of the oldest women's organizations in the nation. We've been around for about 100 years, and we've been at the center of critical social issues such as women's rights, voting rights, and civil rights. Our mission is very bold and iconic, and that's to eliminate racism and empower women. We have several programs that are mission-based that tackle the byproducts of inequality, that being affordability and accessibility. So we have a child care program here in Princeton that also has a bilingual nursery school. We also have a breast cancer resource center that provides support services to breast cancer patients and survivors. And we have an English as a second language program. But what we're really focused on right now is bringing in younger women and women of color to the YWCA. And part of that is through our Next Gen board, which Sam and Raya both serve on.
When we think of the YWCA, there's obviously the physical workout aspect of it, but this has a social purpose.
Right. So we have transitioned from what people traditionally think of as the YW, and now we're really focused on mission-based programming. So our Next Gen board is really a board training program for young women.
Yeah, so about 3 years ago in 2016, the YWCA board was in the process of kind of developing their strategic plan. And one of the things that they really wanted to do was start to increase young women involvement in the YWCA mission and on the board. And so after kind of looking at a number of different models, the decision was made to create this Next Gen board, which is essentially a group of young women ages 21 to 34 who are interested in learning about serving on a nonprofit board, so the roles and responsibilities that go along with that, gaining financial literacy, developing leadership skills both professionally and personally, and also being mentored by influential community leaders. So in our mentoring program, we have YWCA board members and other community partners that are mentoring Next Gen members to help them progress personally and professionally through their careers. And fun fact is that the YWCA Princeton Next Gen board is actually one of only 2 Next Gen boards in the country, YWCA Next Gen boards. The other one is out in Pittsburgh.
So this isn't a national program. This is more, something that just happened independently here.
Yes, yeah. And so I think it's something to definitely really be proud about. And we just kind of want to raise awareness about this really unique opportunity for young women in the Mercer County and surrounding area to get involved with the YWCA's mission and just really grow personally and professionally. And we actually do have an application deadline for new members of May 6th this year. So we're really looking for new people to come on, join the board. We have members of all different types of backgrounds, nonprofit, public, private sector, education. So
how many are on your board?
We have 13 members right now, but we can go up to 25. So there's a lot of opportunity there.
You have events.
Yes.
We do, yes.
We do have events. So Sam and I have been in this part of the inaugural board since 2016. And throughout those years, we conducted our poetry slam that we did last year. That was a tremendous success. Everybody wants that to happen again, and we're trying to work on that maybe for the next latter part of this
I have
year.
One. Hickory Dickory Dock.
And then recently, just a few months ago, we did the RGV. It's a film screening. That was in Princeton Public Library, and that was a success too. We have a lot of attendees, and we saw different a lot of people from different walks of life like really gather and like discuss. Also, there's a panel discussion after the film. So those are the kind of things that we are doing. So like right now, the expectation, if you join the board, we have like different committees. So we have professional development, events, depending on where your skill sets are, you can like share that to the group. Or if you want to harness like some of your skills in different arena, you can do that as well. The expectation is that we meet as a board like once a month, like about 2 to 3 hours. And then if you're joining in a committee, it's like they meet as well, either virtually or in person, about like 1 to 2 hours. Those are some of the expectations, but we really do have fun, and we are on a mission all the time, and we stand against racism and empower women.
Yes.
What are some upcoming events?
So a few Next Gen board members serve on our missions committee, and that missions committee is tasked with an annual event called Stand Against Racism, right here. The YWCA and former YWCA Trenton founded the Stand Against Racism in 2007, and that was to really bring awareness about racial justice work going on in the community, and it's now a national program for all YWCAs. So there's 200 of us that participate in April Stand Against Racism. So some Next Gen board members are participating in that. The first kickoff event will be on Thursday, April 25th. There'll be thought-provoking talks, and we're bringing together members of the community to talk about, racial justice issues.
What specific issues?
So our theme this year is building a safe and secure future for women and girls. We felt really energized by the number of women elected to Congress, so we wanted to capitalize that and inspire a new generation of women leaders.
Oh, so you're a training ground here.
Yes. We like to think of ourselves as pioneers.
And then there's also, do you want to talk a little bit about the rally, the youth rally?
Sure. So on Friday, April 26th, we're going to have a open mic and youth rally for all school-age kids and youth here in Heinz Plaza. And that's just to give youth a voice to talk about the racial justice issues and racism in their communities. So we're inviting all youth in the area to either write a poem, write a song, just tell their story, and to congregate on Heinz Plaza that Friday evening. So we're really excited about it. We think youth deserve a voice.
Are there going to be attempts to grow this movement across the YWCAs?
So all 200 YWCAs participate in that. I think we all collectively would love to see some sort of national campaign where we all participated in this together. But right now, each YWCA is independent and has its own Stand Against Racism event. But I think we would all love to just see us come together behind this Stand Against Racism campaign.
What kind of projects are you attempting to develop right now?
Next Gen, I think, is our biggest focus right now, is really trying to engage young women and women of color into the YWCA. We're coming up on our 100th anniversary in 2022, and being nearly 100 years old, there's a new generation of young women like ourselves that want a place in the community. So the Next Gen serves as a sort of ground for them and gives them the space to share their voice with others. And so that's something that we're really proud of and focused on right now.
Yeah, definitely. And there's obviously a lot of different organizations in the Princeton area. And, I think one of the things as part of Next Gen, we'd like to kind of bring organizations together a little bit more and work collaboratively with one another and just learn about the different things that we all support so we can support our mission at the YWCA Princeton. Next Gen, we try to think of kind of like fun, I guess, younger sort of things to do. So we've done
raves.
No, we've done a happy hour in the past, and we're looking for more social engagement and networking for young professionals, trying to reach out to colleges. A lot of businesses have women's groups as well, trying to connect with them and get everyone in one place, thinking about other fun things like maybe doing book club or paint and sip parties, just to kind of allow for that networking opportunity and expand the reach of Next Gen within the community.
And on that line too, we're really encouraging young women of color to join us because we really need to show the diversity and how rich the community is, because we're still needing that in our Next Gen board.
Does society lack community centers now? Or places that go and can congregate, make things happen?
So I think yes, but I think so much of our community centers are actually virtual. I think social media has really taken community and redefined it. And so I think we all congregate on the internet in different ways.
At the same time, it's isolating.
Right,
It is,
right.
yeah.
And that's why I think having an organization like the YW that's specifically creating a space for young women is so important.
A real space.
A
Yes.
real space, not a virtual. Well, we do have a virtual space. You can follow us on social media at YWCA Princeton, but there's an actual space for young women in the community to come together. And that's what's so neat about Next Gen is, you know, I think we're the first in New Jersey to have this kind of board development program specifically for young women. And I think our generation of young women feel like, I want to get involved somehow, and how do I do that?
Are you starting at, say, high school age, trying to bring women along with this, or is it more young adult?
More young adult, like 21 to 34. But like the YW has like some engagement programs too for the younger.
We have a robotics program, which is also a toddler, so to speak, in terms of programs. It's only about 4 or 5 years old. But the robotics program is competitive, it's elite, and it's all girls of color. They're middle school and high school age that engineer robots, and they compete on a state and national level, actually.
Are they fighting robots? Or?
Yeah, they're fighting robots.
Oh, they are?
It's actually
Okay.
really cool. They actually went
There's
to...
not enough fighting robots shows on
There's
television.
really not. They just went to state championships a few weeks ago. And this group of girls is just personally inspiring to me, because when I was growing up, there was no such thing as girls in STEM. So to see these young middle school girls and high school girls building robots and coding and doing things.
Are they doing the welding? And
I don't, they're doing stuff I haven't seen.
You have to be handy with a lot of skills.
Yeah.
I think it's really cool to me, and it's really exciting that there's a space for young girls and also young women.
Now, if they wanted to have people come to the YA, have a robot battle there and film it.
We could do that.
Yeah.
We could do that.
I should join your board. Oh, I'm an old bald guy. I can't.
So the Next Gen board is really like a training ground. So most of our former members are everywhere in the country now, like doing their own thing. One of our original co-president, she is now part of the national office of the YWCA board. And so it really works. So if you are really young women that you would like to make a difference in your community and have a training ground and be in a group of empowering women and very inspiring, and have that mentorship that, you know, are provided by the big board, really join us. And when is the deadline again,
May
Sam?
6th.
May 6th.
May 6th. Definitely want all applications
The
in.
number of women college graduates these days is very high. I think it's more than males.
Yes.
Yet women still face particular problems in the workplace. And as young adults in the workplace, you're facing some of them. So you're at the same time serving on this board, yet and out there dealing with the real problems.
Yeah, so an interesting point about that is, from my perspective, being so young, I am not necessarily privy to a lot of things that the women before me went through, in the workforce and things like that. And one of the things that's really awesome about the mentorship program is we're going to have meetings every 2 months where the whole group gets together, the mentors and the mentees, and we just kind of talk about
The mentees.
what's going on.
Don't mentees me.
And, we are sharing, the mentors are sharing their experiences of being sexually harassed at work and, other things that I personally have not heard a lot about, but it's really important for me to know exist and happen to understand where we are today. That's why I really loved the Ruth Bader Ginsburg film documentary that we screened, because I learned so much about the history of women in that film, and it just gave me such an amazing perspective on where we were and how we got to where we are today.
I also think what's really important about Next Gen is that the message that we're sending to our Next Gen board members is that you don't have to do it alone. And we're talking about my peer group. I mean, you're talking about women 21 to 34 who are recent college grads. Maybe they might still be in grad school. They're getting married. They're having babies. They're starting a family. They're paying their mortgage. So it can feel really overwhelming. And the message that we're sending to them is you don't have to do it alone. There are women who have gone down this path before you, and they'll be there for you, which is a great experience to have the mentorship with our larger board to show the Next Gen board that you don't have to do it alone.
Yeah.
It's also a good place to meet people.
Right. Absolutely.
Because we all need to do that and get out of our,
Right. That virtual community center that we're also
where you
used
actually
to.
talk to live human beings. But you're human beings, right? Yeah.
Maybe.
And that mentorship it's not just like every 2 months. Like you can have an ongoing relationship with your mentor, and it's up to you. And you're really matched with whoever, like, your interests, your skill set, like whatever you want to learn. You are really intricately matched with a great mentor. So it's a great program.
Yeah, and it's a great opportunity too. So for me professionally, I work in the nonprofit realm, and I haven't been in like the corporate or the private sector. So it's a good opportunity if you are thinking about maybe moving to other types of industries to connect with people who are in them, so you can learn a little bit more about like, is this the right decision for me, and just kind of run, your questions by them. I think
gives you a
really
broader
valuable.
experience.
Yes.
Definitely.
Yes, ability to connect with people you might otherwise not have, just given your sphere of operation.
Well, thank you very much for being here.
Thank you for having
Thank you.
us.
And we will have
Great.
information about how to contact you on the screen.
Sounds good.
YMCA is on a mission.
Yeah. Next Gen board, we're building .org about Next Gen, and we're building the next generation of women.
Yes.
So watch out and join us.
Yes.
May
definitely.
6th is the deadline for the application for this cycle.
But there'll be another cycle.
Yes.
Oh, yes. They'll be constantly occurring. Yes. So if you're not ready for May, there's more opportunities to join in the future.
Well, thank you and good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So, Raya, what's trending?
So what's trending, Kurt? It's been a while since I've been in this studio talking about what's trending with Raya, right?
You were in prison for a couple of years.
Yeah, I was in prison for a year, and the prison is called Amazon. I was working for Amazon, and I was working like late nights and on weekends, and so it's just like schedule conflict. But hey, I'm back, big, bolder, and better. So
were you the person making all the boxes?
yes,
you were.
that's what we do in Amazon. So my department is we're picking the items. Do you order in Amazon?
Yeah.
You're part of my.
Everyone orders on Amazon.
You are part of my problem, because like we pick that item, we induct it, we sort it, and then we pack it and make sure it's there like 2 days if you're a Prime member.
You're like Santa's elves year round.
Technically, so I am technically the Santa's help with more helps. So I have associates that does that. But hey, there's a lot of things going on with me, Kurt. So recently I got nominated to be the official candidate of the Old Bridge Township Democratic Organization.
You're not running for president?
I'm not yet president. I'm running for council at large in Old Bridge Township. So
Okay.
I am the candidate, so I'm busy with that.
So what would you do once you take over this place?
So once I take over this place, so our goal is to have a Democratic mayor and Democratic council. So personally, part of my platform is to really integrate strategic planning and fiscal responsibility in township governance, shifting our focus from overdevelopment to improving quality of life. And I would really like to instill like programs, youth and young adult programs for engagement and development programs that, will engage our youth, not virtually, like what we talked about in Next Gen, but to have a center for that. But one more thing is like I was recently in Washington, D.C. So I was trained by this group called Emerge America. So last year I talked to you guys about Emerge New Jersey when I was a part of the 2018 cohort. So I got lucky to be part of the 2019 D.C. National Candidate Boot Camp in Washington, D.C. last weekend. So they trained Democratic women to run successful campaign and win elections.
So how are you going to be on this run as a candidate with each and every one of your nails is a different color?
Different colors, because that's also what's trending. So if you like my nails, make sure you check out Ladea Nails. It's in Old Bridge, New Jersey. It's getting ready for Easter, Kurt.
Oh, I did not know.
Yeah, so how have you been, Kurt?
I have been too busy.
Too busy.
Yes, I had a bright idea last month. I'm going to make a web series tutorial that teaches people the shorthand things you need to know for various sciences and integrating them all together, including
You know who's the first person that's going
the
to...
history of the Earth, chemistry, biology, and then we wind up with people and going through all the various the geological eras, the Paleozoic, Mesozoic, Cenozoic, and then the future of mankind.
You know, when I was in school, I was really interested in all of those. But you know who's going to really benefit that?
Who?
Is Adam.
No,
he needs to learn all those things.
It's
he
not
doesn't
going
know
to
all
work.
those
It's
things.
not going to work.
Why it's not going to work? I think it's too late for him.
No, it was always too late for him.
Yeah. It's so good to be back here without Adam, by the way.
We might want to say that Adam could not host this show today because he was arrested. He's in jail currently now. He's charged with inane babbling. And Adam, if you're watching, you have the right to remain silent. Think about it.
But seriously, I think he's in a conference in
I was
Atlantic
being
City.
serious.
Yeah. Oh, seriously, though?
Yes,
I
he is
think I
in jail.
checked his Facebook.
Yeah.
He's in a...
Did you see him in jail?
I think it seems like a jail in Atlantic City.
Okay.
But yeah, he's attending something. I think he's running for office too here in Princeton. What do you think of his candidacy? I want your honest opinion. And I know that Adam will like it too.
I'll vote for him.
Yeah.
It would be interesting. If he gets into office and you contact him, he will take you seriously.
Yeah, I think so too.
He will respond to you.
One of the things, like, I think he is tagged as like the rebel, or like people don't take him seriously. But I think he has a good heart to like really.
I don't know about this pay for play thing.
Yeah, did you see that?
They weren't charging everyone. They were just charging the candidates a few dollars. So I don't.
Is it
really
a candidate
know
only? I was
ins
going
and
to
outs
ask you
of
about that.
You know, but it's sort of his way to make a statement and get some attention to himself.
Yeah, I had to teach him some media, relations, like how to like do those statements.
You might want to teach him how to speak.
So what else is going on?
Well, I've been playing the guitar lately.
Yeah?
And I might fit in a little guitarism here.
That would be great.
Instrumentals. I took a long break from it, and then I started playing again a couple years ago, and I brought my level up and been wanting to play out.
Yeah, I've always wanted to like learn that, but I think it's too late for me. Don't you think, with the nails?
It's never going to work. Well, you see, I'm a fingernail guy. You see these nails?
Yeah, I have my own pick.
Yeah, I take zinc supplements to keep them from breaking.
Oh, really?
Yeah, if you want to.
Is it like a
just
oral thing?
Yeah.
Or you
There's
just
little lozenges.
Okay.
From the wellness company.
So it really works.
Yeah.
Women, make sure you take that. Because that will be in my What's Trending next month, because women, we always break our nails. Maybe we need those supplements.
Well, it also helps your immune system.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, they did a long government study on it, and they really found that it helps prevent colds, and if you get one, you recover quickly and quicker. And this is different. They did also a study on echinacea, and they found that echinacea is no different from a placebo.
Yeah, I see. So if you really want more of this, Kurt, it's very nice to be back. I hope to see you again, but I don't know. You said you don't want to come back. But hey, maybe he will come back again. Next month, I'll be back with What's Trending with Raya. Make sure you catch me on Twitter at Raya Arbiol, and on Snapchat and Instagram at Raya Mish. And that's our show for today. Thanks a lot, Kurt, for co-hosting and hosting this episode. And thank you to all our guests, especially the YWCA Next Gen board. And we'll see you next month.
Wait.